This is another situation where two things can be true at once. I think it's too early to say it because you can't have a controversy when one guy can't play and Raiola out for the season. So regardless if you're team Lateef or team Raiola, it doesn't matter. And you need these next two games, if not a little more, to see exactly what Lateef's made of. You're 100% right. Dude showed out. It's a problem when the fan base or even coaching staff is divided on who the starter should be. But when it's unanimous, you have to go to somebody else, and then your backup can come in and do what he did. You couldn't ask for a better scenario, right? So for the time being, deeper into the specifically the Big Ten season, Illinois was the big game that kind of laid a blueprint for other teams that we would eventually play that get as much pressure as possible on Raiola, and he becomes a different quarterback. I don't know that that same blueprint is going to work for Lateef. Maybe it's bracketing receivers. Maybe it's putting a spy and knowing he can't run. I don't know. I'm just throwing hypotheticals out. But if some team finds something that is, his kryptonite, and other teams follow a coaching perspective, you have to go with who the better option is, regardless if it's the guy that's not making as much money or wasn't as highly recruited, or if it is that guy. If it comes down the stretch and it's like, yeah, all things considered, this guy does have a little bit of an edge or does give you a better opportunity. But I think we saw tonight that the mobility that TJ gives you allows Holgerson to call the game a little bit different, and it allows the offensive line specifically to not have to be so one-dimensional and hold a pocket for a long, extensive period of time. There's a reason why the offensive line doesn't look as bad in the run game. One, you have Emmett, who's phenomenal, but when they can move and push guys and do things instead of trying to chop their feet and stay in front of a guy and then maintain a guy that has either leverage. Case when teams are prepping for Raiola, they've got a season and over a half now to look at what he does well, what he struggles with, game plan for him, that they didn't have that advantage tonight. That being said, that's not going to give Penn State, for example, a ton. But I think Iowa, with two games and kind of seeing what he's comfortable, not comfortable with, you're going to start to get closer to that. Plus, I think they're right now at least a better defense than Penn State is. So we'll see as it unfolds. But having two guys that are that good, different skill sets for sure, but that good is a very, very good problem to have. Imagine if, I hate to even put the words into existence, but imagine if Emmett got hurt. You're struggling to find a guy that can sustain, not going, okay, now we're on to this guy who is as good or better because he has a different skill set. Like having that at the most important position is huge credit to Rule for being able to recruit both of those guys. Huge credit to Raiola because without him, we don't have a lot of the recruits we have. But then you hear Lateef talk about Raiola as a big brother and like how much he's mentored him and helped him and stayed in touch with, and how important he was down the stretch of that USC game, even though it didn't turn out the way we wanted, but constantly traveling and things like that. I think you just play it out. I don't think it needs to be a divisive pick a side and live and die by it. You let the kid develop at his own pace with all the tools he has available to him, Raiola being one of them, and then assess it during the offseason early next year. Do what you got to do. I mean, maybe who knows what the offseason is going to show, right? Like you can have Raiola come back and realize I need to develop more of a mobile game, even though I'm not ever going to be a fast downhill threat, which Lateef wasn't. He was a running threat, but I think what really opened things up for the offense and helped the offensive line and helped Holgerson in play calling was the ability for Lateef to start rolling right away and present that threat of he might run. So you had to keep somebody somewhat shallow, but he was pinpoint accurate on throwing while he was running and letting guys catch the ball in stride and do their thing. Emmett drastically benefited from that. And that's not something that's impossible for a quarterback to develop, especially a quarterback with the skill set that Raiola has. He's not a 4.2 speed and jukes people out of their shoes, but he's not a statue either. I mean, you can go back and look and people think he's a statue and say he is because of the amount of sacks he takes and he does hold the ball too long, but he's doing that while staying within the pocket. He shows that he can move and extend plays. If he can just make that more of a rhythmic part of his game, he's also a threat. But that's not to say that he could do that to the level that Lateef can, but we don't know yet if Lateef can be as accurate. Maybe the recent games aren't a good example, but as accurate and as much of a threat in downfield passing. So, I mean, you've got to let some things play out and see what happens. You just hope that they both stay, regardless of who the guy ends up being, if and when we get to that point, that crossroads. But it doesn't have to be Raul sucks. I hope he leaves. We want Lateef now. And it doesn't have to be, I don't like Lateef. I hope he leaves next year so that Raul comes back. Like, that's not I don't think that's how the team's looking at it. I know that's not how the coaches are looking at it. I hope that's not how the two players are looking at it. It's not a situation where you have the Urban Meyer at Florida situation where one of them strictly a runner and one of them strictly a passer, where you'd want to go two quarterbacks, because Lateef's showing you right now he can do both. But if you end up with those two as your quarterbacks, one's your starter and one's your backup, you're in a very, very good spot. I know a lot of the fan base is going to make their assumption after this game, and then depending on what happens next game, they'll change or dig in deeper where they're at. Where are you at? Like, do you think that it's impossible for Iola to develop some of the skill set that Lateef showcased tonight, or do you think that it's kind of a foregone conclusion Lateef's going to be the guy? What happens with Raiola next?
I think I'm right there with you. I'm at a wait and see pace. I don't really care who the quarterback is as long as we're successful. I really like Raiola. Obviously, this is the first time we've had a 5-star QB. You want that to go well, and I think it has been going very well with him. But I can't sit here and tell you that Lateef didn't come in and kind of blow us all away. I mean, he was super accurate. They didn't shy away from throwing the ball late in the game. They didn't shy away from throwing it at all. He's proving that he belonged as a Elite 11 quarterback, and who's to say one of those Elite 11 guys can't come in and be one of the best quarterbacks we've ever had. I don't want to crown him there that far yet, but the ball was coming out of his hand nice. It was hitting guys in stride. He's extremely fast. Without Raiola, if we never had Raiola, this would be a clear-cut thing where we're like, oh my God, we upgraded so much over Harburg. But that's what makes this a good problem to have. And I just want them to be patient with it going forward. But if Lateef wins out this season, let's say he goes in and is just too fast for Iowa to handle and is making these big throws in that game, and obviously versus Penn State, dude, I don't know how you take the ball out of his hands. And that's an insane thing to say with Raiola still in the fold. Tell us what you guys think in the comments below. Is there a quarterback controversy, or are we too early on this story?